All right, so let's get going. It's just ticked over time. So thank you all for joining today's webinar. Before we kind of dig in, I just wanted to give you a kind of short little summary of Cookdown. We covered the sort of detail of this on the last webinar where we looked at EasyTune, which is our product about managing overrides in SCOM and alert tuning. Cookdown was spun out from a company called Squared Up, which I know some of you guys know, which is all about dashboards for SCOM and Azure primarily. So we've been going for quite some time under Squared Up, but Cookdown is, as a brand, relatively new. And we're really specializing in SCOM and digging in deep on SCOM. And that's the 2-second version, I guess. If you're interested in more, check out, as I said, the previous webinar. So now let's introduce us, I guess. So I'm Bruce Cullen. I am the Director of Products here at Cookdown. So if it's not writing code, it will probably be me. The other thing to know about me is I'm just getting over the tail end of a cold, so you'll have to excuse the sniffles and coughs and whatnot as I deal with it. On the call with me, I have Nathan Foreman, our Solutions Architect. So Nathan has a long history with SCOM, has been around for much longer than myself. He'll be on the chat taking questions. Also, if you tweet us at team_Cookdown, Nathan will be there to answer your questions. And obviously, if we don't answer anything during the call, feel free to email us, but more details on that later. All right, so moving on to the important stuff. So today's webinar is obviously about ServiceNow. It's also about SCOM, or Microsoft System Center Operations Manager. So I'm guessing the vast majority of you guys will know both of these products, but just in case, so ServiceNow does many things, but for our kind of purposes, we're interested in the stuff that's in the ITOM and ITSM space. In particular, its incident handling capabilities, its ticketing capabilities, which is all about creating incidents for issues and getting them passed around to get them resolved, and SCOM, which is all about monitoring your IT infrastructure and generating alerts when things go down at simplistic level. So clearly there's quite a bit of synergy between these two products. There's one thing that's clearly missing, which is a connection between them, and that's where the Cookdown ServiceNow Connector comes in. So, and that's going to be the thrust of today's webinar, talking about the ServiceNow Connector. So let's dig right in. So what is it? The ServiceNow Connector is actually a suite of products. They can be bought separately, but they are better together. There's functionality in the products that integrates with other products, and I'll talk about the specifics there as we go on, and through the subsequent webinars that we host. But let's quickly cover the suite of products. So to start with, we have the Alert Sync product, which is all about taking those really valuable SCOM alerts and integrating them through into ServiceNow, allowing you to create incidents automatically from those alerts. Really powerful product. Then we have Discovery, which is all about CMDB population. So SCOM, by virtue of what it does, knows a hell of a lot about your IT infrastructure and estate, and has a central database in which it holds all of this data in the form of SCOM objects. ServiceNow, no doubt your CIO is pushing for your CMDB in ServiceNow to be the one source of truth, and it represents that in the form of configuration items. So rather than kind of reinvent the wheel here, we thought it might be a good idea to integrate those really detailed SCOM objects into ServiceNow and populate your CMDB. The really cool thing about this product is that no additional agents are required. SCOM obviously has an agent on every box. Why reinvent the wheel? We use that agent to do discovery, and that is also true of our mapping product, which is all about populating business services in ServiceNow. So once you've discovered those CIs, really ServiceNow Nirvana is all about joining the dots between those configuration items and building these business services out. And again, because we have a SCOM agent on every box, we don't need any additional agent. We can run mapping on each individual SCOM agent and ask what's on you and what are you talking to build these really complicated diagrams. And we'll cover some of this in this webinar, but today we're going to focus on our Alert Sync product. Discovery and mapping we'll cover in subsequent webinars. So just to kind of set the scene here, we have SCOM on the left-hand side, and we have ServiceNow on the right-hand side. So SCOM, if you know what it does, it monitors your IT estate, and when something goes wrong, it will generate alerts. ServiceNow is all about incident management, at least for our purposes. It does a lot more than that, which are all about resolving those issues. So you can see that the clear synergy here already. But those concepts are key to the Alert Sync product, and ServiceNow Connector's Alert Sync joins the dots between the two. So now to kind of build out a conceptual model, I'll then go into a demo to show you how this thing looks and works. So SCOM raises alerts. So let's say in my example that we're monitoring a SQL database, SQL server, and the SQL transaction log is full. SCOM, if it's monitoring that, will throw an alert for that issue. With the ServiceNow Connector Alert Sync product, we will create in ServiceNow an alert record. That alert record will contain everything that's on the alert from SCOM. And then that alert record will then be compared against what's called incident creation rules in ServiceNow. So these govern when an incident is created or simply an alert record is created. If there's a match, then an incident is created. Straightforward. So let's say in our example, our SQL transaction log is full. The incident that's created for this is assigned to a guy called Bob, and he has a look at the issue, sticks it into the in triage state, maybe assigns it to a specific business service. He will then go in and update that incident. So by doing so, that data is pushed through to the alert record. And then if you have bidirectional sync enabled, which is a feature of the Alert Sync product, that information about that incident is flowed through into SCOM. So you can choose whether you live in SCOM or in ServiceNow. And usually, you know, the answer to what people do depends on organizational politics and internal processes, essentially. So that's one of the capabilities. Just to walk through another one. Now, let's say Bob has a look at this issue. He goes, okay, to solve this, I need to just clear the transaction log. Easy. So he goes and does that. He then closes the SCOM alert. This will push an update through into ServiceNow, marking the alert record as closed too. Now, the incident will remain open. Bob will need to go in here and close the incident. So this is a dotted line. So he will go and resolve the incident. This is default product behavior. If you want to do something different and you want this final piece to happen automatically, you can configure the product in such a way. This is the out-of-the-box behavior here. What's more likely is rather than Bob going into SCOM and closing the alert, he'll probably go and resolve the incident. Again, default product behavior, resolving the incident closes off the alert record, which will close the generated SCOM alert. So as I've been mentioning throughout, this is all default behavior. It's all fully customizable through scripts, and I'll show you through the demo in a second what that looks like. So demo time. Before I get stuck in with the demo, there's two things to know about the Alert Sync product. There is a ServiceNow app, which we're in the middle of certifying right now that you install into your ServiceNow instance that handles alerts received and contains the incident creation rules themselves. And then in SCOM, you have a management pack that's installed that handles pushing alerts through into ServiceNow. So with that in mind, I'm going to flip over to SCOM. So this is the SCOM console, as you'll probably be familiar with. When you install our management pack, you get the ServiceNow Connector alerts piece here at the bottom of the administration pane. So all of these settings are relating to this. So to set this thing up, it's really quite simple. You in SCOM configure what's called a run as account. This is basically providing SCOM with the credentials it needs to talk to ServiceNow. You provide an instance name and instance URL. Again, all standard SCOM stuff here. You add a connector in. So the connector is what governs when alerts are pushed through into ServiceNow. When you create this connector from within Alert Sync, you can choose to push through every single alert or a custom subset. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. There's a test connection button, which does what it says on the tin. It checks that with the credentials you provided, you can access that ServiceNow instance URL. And then at the bottom, you've got a few settings. So we have an enabled disabled master switch. We recommend setting everything up before hitting enabled, just so that alerts aren't sent through when you're not expecting them to be. You have an interval in seconds. This is the frequency at which SCOM alerts are sent through to ServiceNow. The default is 120 seconds, but I've tuned this down for a better demo, basically. We have a bidirectional sync checkbox. So if this is unchecked, all of the stuff to do with populating incident data into SCOM on the alerts will not happen. Also, ServiceNow will not be able to close alerts. So this needs to be checked for that stuff to happen. We also have allow alerts to be closed by ServiceNow. So if bidirectional sync is checked, but this one is unchecked, then you'll get the incident data on the SCOM alert. But at the end, when the incident is resolved, the SCOM alert will remain open. And again, there's no kind of right answer to what to do here. Usually it comes down to internal business process and sort of politics, typically. The final one to know about is allow resetting monitor alerts. So anyone that's worked in SCOM for any period of time will know what this is all about. So monitor workflows in SCOM, if you simply close the alerts that those generate, that monitor will never generate an alert again until reset. So obviously we're SCOM experts, so we get this stuff. So that's why this is here. You can govern what happens here. So anyway, you set this up as you want and you hit save settings. So I mentioned earlier, we created an internal connector. So this uses SCOM's standard internal connector functionality. So here you can see a few other ones, but you can also see the alert sync connector here. If I go on the properties of this and edit the subscription that I've created, you'll see the rules that govern when alerts are sent through to ServiceNow. So you give the subscription a name, you specify the specific groups that you might want to send alerts for. So a good use case here is I've got some groups that are production servers and some groups that are non-production. So you might check a subset. For my demo, I've checked the lot. You then pick the specific targets to forward alerts for. Again, I've got, for my demo, everything checked. And finally, the criteria. So I haven't got everything checked here, but this gives you an idea of the sort of thing you can choose to filter alerts on. So I've got everything checked apart from all the states. So in my demo, I'm going to show you what happens here. So at the moment, SCOM will only forward alerts onto ServiceNow when they get moved into a create incident state. This is a custom state I've created in my SCOM environment for the demo. You could do whatever you like here. And actually, our best practice is that you tune SCOM such that the alerts that are generated are sort of sensible and send all of them through, and choose what you create as incidents in ServiceNow. But obviously, depending on how well tuned your SCOM environment is, you might not want to do that. And if you have SCOM environment tuning issues, it's worth checking out our Easy Tune product, which is free. It was covered in the last webinar, and it's all about managing the alerts that are generated. If you're not aware of that product, I'd recommend you have a look at our website. There's a demo video on there, and as I say, the past webinar. So anyway, that's how this is set up. So now I'm going to go through to monitoring and have a look at my active alerts. So you can see here, there's a bunch that I've already been playing with, where I've set create incident as the state to push them through into ServiceNow. So for this one, for example, because I have bidirectional sync enabled, I can see the incident ID populated in the ticket ID field in SCOM, who it's assigned to, the triage team, the business service, configuration item, and the incident state. All of this will be kept in sync. But there's a whole bunch here that I haven't been pushing through. So I'm going to push through one of these. Let's pick this guy here and set the resolution state to create incident. This will push this one through to ServiceNow. And while this is doing its thing in the background, I'm going to flip through to ServiceNow. So where is ServiceNow? There we go. So the first thing you'll see in ServiceNow, that I'll show you anyway, is the configuration in here. The only thing you need to do is set up a service account in ServiceNow. This is the service account that governs the connection between SCOM and ServiceNow. You provide the GUID of that account here. This is used when incidents are raised in the caller ID field. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. We use the display name rather than the GUID, just the setup process has to require the GUID. Pretty simple. That's all that's really required here. And then we have incident creation rules. So this is what it looks like in the product itself. As you will kind of see, they're prioritized. So they have this processing order column. So this is quite good for, if you've got a complicated business where you have multiple teams handling the same technology area, or you want incidents to be routed differently for different bits of technology. So in my example here, I have an incident creation rule for SQL and for IIS that route to different teams and match on certain SCOM alert properties. And then a final backstop rule that always allows the alerts that are received to be created as incidents and assigned to the SNOC triage team, on the basis that in my demo environment, nothing should get sent from SCOM until it's been triaged by the SCOM guy. So it should be at least loosely sensible. So now let's dig into one of these guys. So the first thing you'll see is they get a name, obviously. You can choose whether a rule is active or not. You provide a static configuration item, an assignment group, and processing order, priority order for this rule. So these are then used for incidents that are created. So if an incident hits this rule, it will get mapped to configuration item SQL Server, MS SQL Server, and the assignment group database team. The other thing you'll notice here is this automatically map configuration item checkbox. So this is going back to a point I made earlier around the fact that products are better together. If you have our discovery product, we know the SCOM object that generated the alert to be able to sensibly tie the two together and to pick the correct CI and therefore route the generated incidents more sensibly. But it does depend on our discovery product. So then at the bottom here, you have your incident creation criteria. So in the drop down, you've got all of the properties of the SCOM alerts that you can choose to filter on. So I've got this set up to filter on monitored object display name, and then you have your standard operators, all of which are in ServiceNow. This is very comprehensive. You can do anything from string matches to regexes. So I've got this match on the string SQL. Straightforward. You'll be able to do most things I would think with the criteria, but if you want to do something weird and wonderful or customize the default behavior, for the creation and updates behavior, we have script options. So if you check these boxes, you get an example script that shows you, pretty much the default product behavior in script form. This is fully editable. It's effectively JavaScript. These default scripts are commented, so you know what they do. Also, they're available on support.cookdown.com, along with full product documentation if you want to get a feel for how this thing works. And you can see exactly what it's doing, what SCOM alert fields it's pushing where. So for example, it will populate the incident description field with the SCOM alert description field. And the same for updates. If you check this one, there's a script for alert update behavior and incident update behavior. Same deal. If you want to customize the behavior, it's all fully possible from the incident creation rule. You get the idea. So now the most important thing, SCOM alerts. So you will see here the list of SCOM alerts that have been received here by ServiceNow. You can see this one at the top was the one was it the one I pushed through? No, I don't think it was. You see all of the SCOM alerts that have been received along with the incidents that have been created. So if I have a look at one of these now, this one here, I have the details of the SCOM alerts on the alerts record. So this is all of the contents of the fields of the alerts here, along with that custom data, which we store in SCOM in the form of those custom fields. We also have details about the monitored object that generates the alert on a separate tab here. All this data is available to you. And most importantly, some would say, are the incident attributes. So if this alert triggered hit an incident creation rule and triggered an incident being created, you've got the incident ID and the rule that created it. So this is quite useful for troubleshooting complicated incident creation rule kind of scenarios. Finally, we have the incident itself in ServiceNow. So you've got the caller here set to alert sync service. The assignment group was set automatically by the incident creation rule, as was the configuration item. I've saved in here the business service and I've assigned the thing to myself. And you can see any activity updates that might have been on the incident since it was raised. You get the idea. It's a straightforward product and it's a straightforward solution to a complicated product. And that's what we think makes it really powerful. We leverage the true power of SCOM's monitoring capabilities and push all that data through into ServiceNow to allow you to create incidents and also, probably to fulfill your CIO's goals of having single pane of glass for everything to do with incidents. Typically, we hear CIOs wanting their help desk professionals to live in ServiceNow and not to need access to the SCOM console, which this product will do. And that's pretty much it. It's a straightforward product. So just to wrap us up now, back to slides. So that was the demo. If you like what you saw and you want more information, either of a technical nature or, anything else, demos to other members of the team, or more product information in general, head over to cookdown.com/ServiceNow Connector. There's also information on there on the other products in the suite, discovery and mapping. If you want to email us, it's hello@cookdown.com. And finally, Twitter is @team_cookdown. Also, I mentioned sort of in passing, the documentation site is support.cookdown.com. That's obviously linked to from the main product site. All the technical information about how the products work and as well as the default behavior is over there. And that's that. And finally, just a quick plug for our next webinar. So the next one will be on SCOM-based discovery. After this webinar, I'll update this URL, go.cookdown.com/webinar to point at the next one. It's currently pointing at today's webinar. And that will be on the 26th of June at this same time, so 3 p.m. British Standard Time. And we'll look at, SCOM-based discovery. So that's all about populating your CMDB with SCOM's wealth of data. And the main things that are really important to know about that are no additional agents are required. And SCOM just knows so much about your environment when it's monitoring it, more in some cases than ServiceNow has fields out of the box to populate with that data. So it's a really powerful and, again, really simple product. And that is that. So thank you for joining today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll make sure that the video is available on our YouTube channel. And unless there are any questions, I will speak to you all again next time. Thanks very much for joining.